Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hope you are well by the grace of Almighty Allah. Alhamdulillah, I am also well. This is the fourth English class from Bangabandhu College, Rajshahi, for the students of HSC first year. And of course, this is my fourth class before you. Our today's discussion is on Unit 2, Greatest Scientific Achievements. Today we will discuss Lesson 1 and 2 of Unit 2. You can see the monitor of my laptop here, and I have tried my best to bring the text of you before you through my monitor. Our today's lesson 1, some of the greatest scientific achievements of the last 50 years. In this lesson, some greatest scientific achievements of the last 50 years have been discussed. And at the same time, another thing that is very interesting has been discussed here, and that is our power, our tendency to cope ourselves with the incredible changes of science, or with the incredible inventions of science. We have with the human beings have first lighted our house with electricity in 1870s only. Then what we use today very much, that is our cars. And cars became available only 100 years ago. Then, with the human beings first made the transatlantic flight in 1927. Again, television became available to us only after the Second World War, or the Second World War that too. But we, the human beings, show such a tendency that these are very much common to us, though these were not in the past years of this earth, not even in 100 years ago, but we show such a tendency that these are very much common, these are very much simple to us. However, another scientific achievement of the present time, or of the science, is that the artificial heart. Implanting heart with in 1982 was an extraordinary step towards increasing the human lives. A doctor named Barney Clark was the first person who was implanted with the artificial heart, and the name of the heart was Jarvik 7. Dr. Robert Jarvik designed this heart, and so it was named after him, Jarvik 7. Though the patient, Dr. Barney Clark, survived only 112 days, of course it was a huge step toward the development of heart transplant surgery. Then another important event, or another important invention of the science, is cell phone. Cell phones have been around since the late 1800s, but cell phones made their appearance only in the 1990s. Today, by some estimates, more than 100 million people in Bangladesh and more than 4.6 billion people worldwide have mobile phones. And of course, we have to acknowledge that anything that is useful and spreads so fast has to be considered one of the greatest inventions of all time. And in that sense, of course, cell phone is one of the greatest inventions of science, one of the greatest inventions of all time of science. Then another important invention is the personal computer. We all know about the benefits of, or about the advantages of personal computer. We will not find a person who doesn't know about the computer. It is a machine which helps us, or which allows us to access the internet, do word processing, use a calculator, watch TV, play games, or do a host of other things. But matter of interest is that the personal computer only became available to consumers in 1970. Then another important thing or another important invention of modern science or science is the communication satellite. Today's high-tech world of cell phones, GPS, or the satellite high above the planet that make the instant communication possible is only because of the communication satellite. But it all began just 50 years ago with one giant balloon, space balloon. And 10 July 1962 marked the birth of satellite communications. And the name of the first satellite communication was Terrestre. On the 10th July of 1962, Terrestre satellite commenced its journey into space and became the first ever active communication satellite. And interesting is that it was built by a team at Bell Telephone Laboratories in USA. Then another important invention of science is the moon landing. You know, the moon landing is very important in the history of human civilization. And today, we the human beings hope to live in another planet or hope to live in another world only because of this invention. But it became possible only in 1969 as part of the Apollo 11 mission. Neil Armstrong became the first person to accomplish that thing. And 1 minute later, Buzz Aldrin followed him. And their accomplishment gave people around the world the hope of future space exploration. Then another interesting invention of science is the internet or the World Wide Web. And we know now that through internet we can get access to anything of the world today within the twinkle of our eyes. But the internet was invented only in 1969 and public had access to internet only in 1993. That is just 27 years ago. And the name of the first internet was ARPANET. The next important invention of modern science is the microchip. Microchip is a set of electronic circuits on one small plate of semiconductor material, normally silicon. Today, microchips are used in all electronic equipments and have revolutionized the world of electronics. But the forerunner of microchip was invented back in 1959 only, and it really started to take off in 1980s. And since then, incredible advances in microchips have made it possible for them to be cheaply and efficiently used for calculators, personal computers, weight identification, automatic teller machines, satellites, pacemakers, cell phones, and microwave ovens, among many other products. There is no product of electronic world in which microchips are not used. This is the reality. However, this was about the first lesson of our Unit 2, and now we go to the second lesson of our unit. Second lesson, Science and Technology Against an Age-Old Disease. Our second lesson is Science and Technology Against an Age-Old Disease. This lesson is about an age-old disease, and that is leprosy. Leprosy has been in us, or leprosy has been a disease of the human beings from the biological time. But unfortunately, people thought that this chronic infectious disease would eliminate itself and burn out over time. But the reality is not so. though we thought that it would eliminate itself automatically. Actually, it has not been so. Nearly 250,000 new cases of leprosy are diagnosed every year, and many more go undetected. And what is the concern about this, what is the most important thing about this, is that approximately 10% of new cases occur in children. Even though it was associated with biblical times, leprosy remains a problem in the modern era and was reported in 130 countries worldwide. Then another critical thing is that symptoms include progressive and permanent damage to the skin, nerves, limbs, and eyes, but they can take several years to appear, making the disease hard to diagnose at an early age. What has been discussed here is that symptoms of leprosy causes permanent damage to skin, nerves, limbs, eyes, but the symptoms do not appear at the early stage of the disease. They occur at a time when it becomes very hard to prevent the disease or to cure the disease. Then another most important thing about this disease is that leprosy results in isolation, as people with leprosy are often shunned. That is, when one is attacked with leprosy, the society or the people around him reject him, as it is a chronic infectious disease. So the man became isolated from the society, from his neighbors, from his near and dear ones, and lead a very painful life. And that is why the writer here writes about this disease especially, and he also shows some hope for the disease. The writer tells about some steps which they are taking to eliminate the disease. They are trying to develop a fast and easy to use test which will provide an early diagnosis of infection before clinical symptoms such as nerve damage begin to appear. Steve Reed, the chief scientific officer and founder of IDRI, Infectious Disease Research Institute USA, who is writing this composition or who is writing this essay on leprosy, is also developing a companion test so that they can identify which people will likely to progress to the disease and to determine the appropriate course of treatment. And secondly, they are trying to develop a vaccine that can be used therapeutically in conjunction with antibiotics to shorten the therapy. This vaccine will, of course, prevent the disease, prevent the spread of the disease. And the most exciting part of this breakthrough is that they are now right on the course of human clinical trials after a decade of leprosy vaccine development. At the same time, another important thing about the disease is that global technology has been an integral part of the quest to eliminate leprosy. The rapid diagnostic test for leprosy infection, for example, was developed in conjunction with a Brazilian company. A Brazilian company has helped them or has patronized them to do this work. And finally, they hope that at present, people around the world now believe they will soon have the tools to finally eliminate leprosy. And the next step is making this disease disappear. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.